Yeah, thanks, Jen. I appreciate the opportunity. It's been a really great ride so far with this organization. They've been a huge asset to our department. So let me just give you a little bit of background as far as my background, where I'm from, and kind of what got us here. I grew up in Florida, and after high school, I moved to South Carolina, and there I met my wife in college, and she was a North Carolina girl. So we lived in South Carolina for a long time, but then about 16 years ago, we decided to move up here to North Carolina to be a little closer to her family. And after spending most of my career in education, I was a coach and a teacher and an athletic director. When we moved here, had the opportunity to join the Parks and Recreation staff here in Valdese. Kind of a little bit of a change in focus, but similar. And it's been absolutely phenomenal. I've really enjoyed the opportunity to still be involved in sports and things like that, and families and kids, but maybe just a little different focus, and it's been good. But and when we joined the staff here in 2011, our former director retired, and thankfully I had the opportunity to join the staff here as the new Parks and Recreation director. And after that time, I think I was still on a grace period, an opportunity for me to do a few things to see what we could do. And our town manager at the time gave me the opportunity to begin working on a master plan, and shortly after that allowed us to begin raising some funds, or trying to raise some funds, to put together a small park that had an event meeting center, splash pad, and a playground on some land that was donated right next to our community center here at the Recreation Department. Well, that went pretty well, and we were able actually to get our first Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant. We were able to acquire a KB Reynolds grant, and had some fairly significant gifts from some folks in the community to start the project. And it was going along fairly well, and then we started finding out that the architect who we had been working with to put together some of the plans had grossly underestimated the cost of some of the things we were going to be doing, which is probably not uncommon for many of our projects. But this being our first big project with myself as the director, it was a little, I guess frustrating would be one word for it. But about that time, as we were starting to go through some understanding that we were going to need more money, about that time is when I first met Beth. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that meeting in a second, but I want to introduce Beth to you at this time. This is Beth Heile. She is the founder and president of the wonderful organization we have here, Friends of the Valdese Rec. And I want her just to take a few minutes to tell you a little bit about her background, just where she's from, where she's been, and what brought her back to this area. So go ahead, Beth.
Good morning. Yes, my name is Beth Heile, and I was born and raised in Valdese, North Carolina. So proud to be from a small town. I grew up here, went to high school here, but then I went off to the big city of Raleigh for college and graduated from NC State. And I majored in electrical engineering there. And after graduation, there's just not many jobs in Valdese for an electrical engineer. I stayed in that area, got married, and had my son. Things started changing a little bit when my son started kindergarten in Wake County. I love around schools, but just something about Wake County, and to me, it's a rat race. I'm sure some of you like all that, but if you weren't in organized sports by the time you're 5 years old, I'm just not sure what you're going to do with your life. So we made a decision after my son completed kindergarten to come back to Valdese to the small town life. My family is not into organized sports. We're into biking, kayaking, hiking, things like that. So it was great to get back to Valdese where we could be near all of that. And also near my mom and my brother and my sister and cousins, just so my son could grow up around all that. Once we got back to Valdese, I know some people may be embarrassed about their small towns or cringe at the thought of it, but I love my town and just want the best for it and for it to be popular and everybody to come here and live and grow up here. So I was always looking for ways once I got back to town how I could make sure everybody knew how great Valdese is. And Doug was able to make that happen. And so here I am and telling Doug and my story.
Good deal. Thanks, Beth. So I'm going to, basically what we're going to do is we're going to go through a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation just to keep us on track. And I'm going to talk a little bit. I'm going to hand some things over to Beth. So we're going to kind of have a little bit of a give and take. I think at the end we will have time if you have any questions or comments or anything that you want us to clarify a little bit. So I'm going to just start moving through this, but a little bit about how we began this organization. It was kind of interesting. You know, Beth said she was from the Valdese area, and so I was already the director here, and we have an older lady who works downstairs in our fitness center at our desk to check people in and things like that in the morning. And so one morning I was down there, you know, just checking on some things, getting some things started in the morning, and Beth came in and she introduced me to Beth, her mom, and Reba, who works with us, are best friends. And she introduced me to Beth. And so I had a chance to talk to Beth for a minute. And so one of the first things Beth told me is that, you know, we just moved here a little while back, and we're just kind of getting established back in the community. And we're looking forward to really getting immersed into everything that you're doing here. And I just want to be able to be a help if I can. And I want to get involved. So I want you to let me know if there's anything I can do to help. And as soon as I get to that point and I'm ready to go, I'm going to let you know. And so I just kind of said, that's great. I'm looking forward to it. You know, we're always happy to have people who are ready to jump in and help us, but I had no idea what this would lead to, but exciting. So a little later on, after that meeting, my family was at a restaurant just having a meal, and Beth brought her husband, Eric, and Zach into the same restaurant, and they had just been doing some biking and in our local area in the next town over. And they were doing some biking, and she came over, and I think maybe that was the first time that I'd introduced her to my family. And I don't know if I'd met Eric and Zach before that, but she was just telling me a little bit about what they'd been doing. And I told her, I said, you know, there is some property that we would love to have right here in Valdese that would allow you to do that right here without having to go somewhere else to do it. And I think that kind of piqued her interest. And so shortly after that, she was again at the fitness center one morning, and she just stopped by and said, okay, I'm ready to go to work. And, you know, what can I do? And so at that time, I just asked Beth, you know, and many of you know, I know some of you that are here in this webinar are from larger towns, and I know sometimes things are a little different there. And many of you maybe are from smaller towns like us, but you know, our capital improvement plans are pretty small, not large enough to take on a big project, normally a very big project. And usually the town council and town manager are, you know, they want to know what you know, would like to do, and they want to know what my interests are and what I think we can do. But really, they're much more concerned about what people in our community want, which is, you know, that makes sense, and that works across every town, whether it's small or large. But she asked me, you know, what she could do, and I just told her, you know, I've tried really hard to try to move some things forward here, but I think that we really need the community involved. And what would really help us out a whole lot would be to establish a friends group. And that's a group of citizens here in our community that are willing to form an organization, you know, and I told her to look into the possibility of creating a 501c3, because there are a lot of people who really would rather give to an organization, a nonprofit, to help things rather than giving money to a town. A lot of citizens already say they pay plenty of taxes to the town and don't necessarily want to give more for things we want to do, but we'll happily give them to a 501c3 organization who is helping us. So at that time, Beth began to look into what it would take to do that. She's going to talk a little bit more about that. So why would you want to have a friends group? What are some of the reasons you would want to do that? Obviously, who doesn't need help? We all need help. The biggest thing that I've found is providing community support for our projects. When you do a master plan or, a plan for a specific park or things like that, you always have public meetings and get a lot of input from your community. But you're really, and I think sometimes these things are even multiplied more in a small town, but you are not going to get anything accomplished in a small town unless you can really garner some real solid public support for what you want to do. So this was probably the first reason we wanted to do it. Secondly, obviously, is fundraising, an opportunity to have volunteers, and Beth's going to talk a little bit more about this later as well, for different cleanups, maintenance, different events that you're going to have, having extra hands at a moment's notice. I can't tell you how many times we've had things come up that we just placed a call to Beth, and she's gotten a group of people out to help us out.